Welcome to Here's How We Get There. It's the daily show filled with conversations about business and mental health in a down-to-earth style with real-world language. Now let's dive in with your co-hosts, Kenneth Shark Kinney and Trey Tucker.
All right, Trey, this is a common problem that I think all businesses, all leaders run into, but I especially see this a lot working with a lot of small to medium-sized businesses. I've gotten a lot of this counseling for people in large corporate organizations who come to me and talk about how to react to pressure in tough times. Something that happened to me recently was I had several businesses that started to see a downturn in the economy. They started to recognize this, and a lot of their efforts were starting to reflect how they need to reposition. So what is your advice to a leader in business and how to deal with and how to react to pressure in tough times?
Yeah, in the same way, I work with leaders as well on their mindset and how to stay steady in these times, both the good and the bad. But one of the first things that they have to remind themselves is that their brain is not thinking logically when bad news hits. So as much knowledge as they probably have, as much wisdom as they've probably accrued over their career, when they are in fight or flight, which is what happens when bad news hits, you can't go straight to the logical thinking. Your brain just won't do that immediately. So what I tell any leader to do whenever bad news comes or any sort of a tense situation happens, number one, be aware of it, because once you're aware of it, you can kind of separate yourself from it a little bit, kind of zoom out from it. And then also, if you can, go take a walk outside, because by taking a walk, you actually trick your body into thinking that you're somehow like running away from the problem. In other words, the fight or flight part, you're flighting from the problem. So typically once you've come back from that walk, your breathing has happened, you burned off some of that nervous, panicky energy, and your brain at that point is ready to take the actual business advice that they probably already know and have. But before they can do any of that, they've got to get back into regulated or back into their zone.
Yeah, so a couple things. One, just from a simple technique at work, I mean, really when people just sort of take that step of, I don't know, meditation, it's like taking a walk. It's really just sort of closing your eyes, breathing and pulling yourself out of a situation, and then helps you refocus on the situation itself. The other is, though, from a business standpoint, is really to think heavily about strategy. So many people rush into business and business decisions without thinking through an impact that's beyond what's happening tomorrow. Look, if there is a legitimate fire, then you have to address that fire. You metaphorically got to get the hose out and put water on it. That if something hits that hard, but if you can't control it, if you can't control whether or not a fire is going to happen, then you have to start looking really at your strategy. And long term is not, I love it to be the Eastern philosophy where we look 10 and 20 years down the road in the future, but so few people don't look more than 10 or 20 days into the future. Yeah. You've got to come up with a business strategy that will sustain you, because the decisions you make today will impact you long term. They will affect your business 3, 6, 9, 12 months out. And so many leaders they become so reactionary without thinking of the strategy beforehand. We often hear that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And strategy, though, can really help you survive a lot of tough times. I don't have a good saying like that old famous one, but if people can develop a strong strategy that will help them weather the storm, that's going to help them get through a lot of tough times.
Yeah, exactly. Because a panicked brain is very nearsighted. It only sees the short term, but a relaxed brain, a more calm brain, is seeing the long term. And so, yeah, you got to rely on the strategy that you made when everything was calm and you had the collective wisdom. Because if you're just going with the instinct when the moment hits, you're going to see only short-sighted and make a terrible decision for your long-term health as a company.
Avoid nearsightedness with a long-term strategy.
Exactly.
See you soon.
Thank you for joining Shark and Trey on the Here's How We Get There show. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit here'showwegetthere.com. That's here'showwegetthere.com.